I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
This one is a little more complex because this Karen, and you know what we do, we follow Karens of the world because Karens are dangerous. This Karen is accusing a black male of being a drug dealer. She has her husband there. I assume this is her husband, maybe her boyfriend. He is trying to be a barrier between her ridiculous allegation and this black couple, specifically the black male. Now, according to the narrative, this is from Louisiana. According to the narrative, she thinks this person is a drug dealer because he's driving a Buick.
Beat the literally get beat the
ass beat.
I can't believe you actually said your name.
He don't know you. You don't know him. You don't know her. You get in the car.
Yes, we'll wait for me.
I'm about to.
Aaron, get your stupid ass in the car. Get in the car, Aaron.
I know you.
Get in the car,
You do not
Aaron.
know him. You do not know her. You don't know anybody around here. You are not special. Get your stupid ass in the.
Crack dealer.
No, he is not.
No.
What? Because he's driving a Buick?
You said crack.
Wait. When you cross-check that. Hey, I'm sorry, y'all. Hey, if you see that bitch in the road, she can't handle it. No, she can't handle a goddamn thing, man. If you see
Aaron, get in the car, Aaron.
I mean, that's really an amazing situation. Now, I don't like how he was talking to her. I think they were both drunk, by the way, not just her. But obviously, the Karenicity in her runs deep because he gets involved trying to stop her from being a Karen again. I don't think this is the first time where she has accused somebody of something, got involved with a person or a couple she had no business even engaging with or talking to, but she's claiming this black male is a drug dealer, obviously has no evidence whatsoever. And here's what's ironic about it, more so than what you just saw. For some reason, her assumption of this person being a drug dealer gives her, I guess, the authority to start harassing them and standing behind their vehicle and making broad allegations against them. As I have said before on this program, I have not met a Karen yet who's afraid of a black male. So you can't hit me with this, well, they are afraid and they're acting out of fear. Hell to the no. Every single Karen, even the Karen who thinks the person is involved in narcotics dealing is not afraid to say it, approach them, be aggressive. But it looks like she had to walk home that day. David, does this stuff surprise you yet?
No, it doesn't surprise me. I think we're talking about Louisiana. Clearly, I think you're right. She was on something, drunk. I mean, look, credit to her husband or boyfriend or whatever he was for at least having the sense to know that that his girlfriend, wife is just is acting crazy. But what is it about Buicks? I mean, why do people say, oh, if it's a Buick, it's a drug dealer? I mean, look, the questions get into my mind if I see somebody, I don't know, driving a Lamborghini, like, wow, I wonder how they got their money. But to immediately assume that somebody's a drug dealer, that's crazy. And I think it gets to, I think there's an awareness now that a lot more people, a lot of Americans are having, and that is we all maybe have friends or partners or people that we know who when they get drunk, their racism comes out or they're biased or they say things that are insane. And all of us have a responsibility to rein them in and to say, hey, get in the car, Karen, get back in the car. Don't be mean to her, don't abuse her. But I mean, we all have to stand up, even if we are, inebriated and we think that one of our friends is saying something. We all have an obligation now in this day and age to stop this stuff and to rein people in.
This was just so ridiculous that somehow you correlate a person driving a Buick to selling drugs. First of all, the only people I know who drive Buicks are over 60 years old and they don't sell dope, okay? They don't sell drugs. But to make that kind of broad connection and then accusation is really, I'm trying to figure out, where did that come from? Was there a time, maybe in 1988 or something, where drug dealers only drove Buicks? I don't know where she's getting it from, is my point. Do you have any idea where she's getting the Buick connection from to drug dealing?
I have no idea, but I think what's probably going on is there's probably something in Erin's life where she can't afford something, she's got some financial difficulty, and rather than looking at herself and saying, okay, what could I be doing differently in my life? How could I be working harder, working smarter, being more effective in order to make more money? Instead of looking at herself, she's projecting, and she's got to scapegoat somebody else and say, well, because I can't afford that, that person can't afford that. And that is what racism and bigotry is all about, that you're unwilling to examine your own insecurities, your own failures, and instead you blame other people for what you can't have. And this Erin is a classic example, and I'd be surprised if her husband or boyfriend stays with her after something like this, but stranger things have happened.
Quite fascinating, but I gotta give somebody credit in that video. The brother, the black guy who was being accused. I mean, he handled himself like a real gentleman. He said nothing. He did not want to engage with this individual. He did not become defensive. He really stood there and really just showed the best of himself in that moment. I don't know if I would have been able to do that. If a random white woman approached me, David, at the Quick Trip and started calling me a drug dealer, I'm gonna give her some words back. He was really, really a nice guy. And listen, these Karens, they keep running into the nicest people.
Well, I wonder if perhaps, these people, I mean, they're able to show this dignity because they know it's coming, right? I'm sure as an African-American man, you've had this happen before.
Oh, yeah.
For me, if somebody said this, I'd be so shocked and surprised that maybe I would react. But I almost think that, well, because it happens so often now, particularly a lot of African-American men and women, they're sort of conditioned to, okay, yeah, there is racism. And you actually have to sort of think through, well, how will I respond? And how do you respond? You try to de-escalate. You try to just sort of laugh it off and ignore it, as painful as it may be. And so, yeah, incredible kudos and credit to that guy for maintaining his composure and dignity, because I know a lot of folks, myself included, who would not have been able to handle it as well as he did.
Very well said. And there's another component here, and I call it the hand in glove. Karen is the hand. The glove would typically be law enforcement. And even if you know you're in the right, you know the other person is in the wrong, if they come at you in a particular way and you respond aggressively or you match their energy and it happens to be a white female, well, if law enforcement shows up as a black male, you have a full expectation that you're going to jail and somebody's gonna have to bail you out. And that's really part of the calculation in the response of black men. It's what if this gets to law enforcement? What if somebody pulls up and I'm inside of this argument now with this white female? What's going to happen to me?
Oh yeah, and that's white privilege right there. I mean, can you imagine? Let's suppose it was an African-American man who was, making accusations about a white couple in their nice car, and a police officer arrived. How would that police officer have handled it? And again, it gets to, we have different standards in terms of how police and how all of us sometimes look at these situations. And on a woman like this, Erin can get away with this absolute nonsense because she is a white woman, and because she's, well, thankfully for her, she had somebody she was dealing with people who were willing to sort of laugh it off and just say, hey, get in the car, Karen. But I mean, that's not always the situation. And the double standards in terms of how we evaluate, especially if you're a police officer responding on the scene, to me, that gets to one of the fundamental problems we have in our society today.
I don't like some of the words that the guy used in order to calm down this particular Karen, but I do like the energy and the spirit and the passion to try to be a barrier between a false accusation, what is rooted in a racial context against a black couple who simply drives a nice car. So I appreciate that kind of passion.
Yeah, I mean, look, this was pure and simple racism, and good for the guy who was able to sort of be that barrier, and also better for the African-American couple that was able to just say, you know what, there are these crazy people out there, and that's just how it is, and we just got to deal with it.
Yeah.